For my 18th birthday, my family handed me an eviction notice from my own house. "We need it more," they laughed together. I said nothing, just signed some papers and left. On their wedding day, when the sheriff arrived with real ownership documents, their celebratory smiles instantly vanished. I, 23M, still remember that day 5 years ago when my entire world collapsed. My 18th birthday should have been a celebration, but instead, it became the day I discovered just how little I meant to the people who were supposed to love me the most. Some background. My grandfather had been a successful real estate investor who built our family's fortune through smart property deals. When he passed away 8 years ago, he left behind a substantial estate, including the house I grew up in. What nobody except my grandfather's attorney knew was that the house had been specifically left to me in his will, with a condition that ownership would transfer on my 18th birthday. My parents were allowed to live there as trustees until then, but the property was legally mine. My parents had divorced when I was 13, and my father had moved out. My mother stayed in the family home with me, and over the years, she grew increasingly resentful about her financial situation post-divorce. She started dating again within a year and eventually met my stepfather, a man who shared her materialistic values and entitled attitude. I never got along with my stepfather. He made it clear from day one that he viewed me as competition for my mother's attention and resources. When they announced their engagement 2 years before my 18th birthday, things got progressively worse. They started making comments about their future in the house and how they had big renovation plans once the annoying teenager was gone. I never thought much of these comments. I assumed they were just being jerks, as usual. I was focused on finishing high school and had been accepted to a state university about an hour away. I planned to commute from home to save money, something I had discussed with my mother, who seemed fine with it at the time. Then came my 18th birthday. I came home from school to find my mother, stepfather, and surprisingly, my father all sitting in our living room with strange smiles on their faces. There was no cake, no presents, just an envelope on the coffee table. It was early summer, and I had just graduated high school a few weeks before. "Happy birthday, son," my father said, pushing the envelope toward me. "We have something important to give you." I opened it, expecting maybe a check or gift card. Instead, I found an eviction notice, formally requesting that I vacate the premises within 30 days. I stared at them in shock. "What is this?" My mother laughed. "We need the space, honey. You're an adult now. Time to fly free. But I'm starting college next month." "We talked about me living here and commuting," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My stepfather snorted. "Plans change. Your mother and I need the house more than you do. We're getting married in 3 months, and we want to start renovations right away. But where am I supposed to go?" My father shrugged. "You can crash at my apartment for a while, I guess." The couch pulls out. The casual way he offered this half measure made it clear he wasn't interested in actually helping me. I looked at the three of them, sitting there smugly, as if they'd orchestrated some brilliant plan. That's when I realized they had planned this together. My father, who barely paid child support and had minimal involvement in my life post-divorce, had somehow reconciled with my mother and stepfather just enough to help kick me out. "We also need you to sign these," my mother added, sliding another stack of papers across the table. "Just some formalities about the property." I glanced at the papers, too shocked and hurt to really process what they were. Something about transferring ownership rights. I now know they were trying to get me to sign away my inheritance without my knowledge. "I need to read these first," I said quietly. My stepfather rolled his eyes. "It's just standard stuff. Your grandfather left some outdated provisions in his will about you having a right to live here, but since you're going to college anyway, it makes sense to clear this up now." That's when something clicked. A memory of my grandfather telling me when I was 10, "One day, all of this will be yours." I made sure of it. I had never given it much thought, assuming he meant the vague concept of family legacy. "I think I should talk to grandfather's attorney first," I said. My mother's face darkened. "Why would you need to do that? This is a family matter. If it involves grandfather's will, I'd like to understand it." Of papers and went in my room. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I skipped school and went straight to my grandfather's attorney's office. The attorney, a kind older man who had always treated me with respect, was shocked when I showed him the papers. "They try to get you to sign these? This is highly unethical, possibly even illegal." He explained that my grandfather had indeed left the house to me, with full ownership transferring on my 18th birthday. My parents had been aware of this provision, but had likely assumed they could pressure me into signing over my rights once I came of age. What should I do? I asked him. Don't sign anything, he advised, and let me handle this. In the meantime, it might be best if you stay elsewhere. They can't legally evict you from property you own, but given the circumstances, it might be safer. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of vindication and deep sadness. The people who should have protected me were trying to steal from me. When I returned home, my mother immediately demanded to know where I'd been. I told her I needed space to think and that I would be staying with a friend for a while. I packed some essentials and left without mentioning my visit to the attorney. Over the next few weeks, I stayed with my best friend's family, who took me in without hesitation when they heard a simplified version of what happened. Meanwhile, the attorney was building a case and documenting every attempt my family made to pressure me. My mother and stepfather continued with their wedding plans, assuming I would eventually cave and sign the papers. They even sent me a wedding invitation with a note. Hope you'll have found your own place by then. P.S. Bring those signed papers with you. The attorney advised me to appear compliant while he worked on the legal strategy. Let them think they've won, he suggested. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people hang themselves with their own rope. So I played along. I texted my mother that I understood their position and would bring the signed papers to the wedding. This seemed to satisfy them, and the harassment temporarily stopped. During those 3 months, I worked part-time at a local bookstore, saved money, and deferred my college enrollment to the spring semester to deal with this situation. The attorney helped me access some of my inheritance funds to cover future tuition and living expenses. He also helped me understand exactly what my grandfather had left me, not just the house, but also a significant trust that would fully mature when I turned 25. The day of their wedding arrived. It was being held at an upscale venue in town, with a reception planned at their house afterward. I showed up at the ceremony, sat in the back, and watched as they exchanged vows, thinking only about how they had tried to rob me of my inheritance and kick me out on the street. After the ceremony, guests began making their way to the house for the reception. I arrived early, along with the attorney and a sheriff who had the legal paperwork showing my ownership of the property. When my mother and stepfather arrived with the first group of guests, they found us waiting in the driveway. What's going on? My mother asked, her white dress gleaming in the afternoon sun. The attorney stepped forward. I'm representing the legal owner of this property, who has not authorized its use for today's event. My stepfather laughed. What are you talking about? This is our house. The sheriff handed them the documentation. According to county records and the properly executed will of the previous owner, this property belongs solely to your stepson. He has not granted permission for this gathering. The look on their faces as they read through the papers was something I'll never forget. The blood drained from my mother's face, while my stepfather turned an alarming shade of red. This can't be right, my mother whispered. We've been living here for years. As trustees, the attorney clarified. Your son became the legal owner when he turned 18 3 months ago. The papers you attempted to get him to sign would have transferred ownership to you illegally. Guests were arriving now, confused by the scene unfolding in the driveway. You can't do this, my stepfather snarled at me. We have 100 people coming here. I looked him directly in the eyes. Actually, I can. And I am. The sheriff explained that they had 2 options: cancel the reception or find an alternative venue immediately. There would be no celebration in my house. My mother broke down, mascara streaking down her face. How could you do this to me? On my wedding day. The same way you could hand me an eviction notice on my 18th birthday and tell me you needed the house more, I replied calmly. My father, who had just arrived, tried to intervene. Come on, son, can't you let them have their reception and sort this out tomorrow? I turned to him. Like you're going to let me sort out being homeless? No. This ends now. The sheriff began instructing guests to return to their vehicles. My mother's sister, my aunt, approached me furious. You're ruining your mother's special day. How could you be so selfish? Ask her about the eviction notice she gave me on my birthday, I responded. Ask her about trying to trick me into signing away my inheritance. As word spread among the guests, the atmosphere shifted. Some people left immediately. Others lingered, watching the drama unfold with barely concealed interest. My stepfather made one last desperate attempt. Name your price, he hissed at me. Everyone has a price. I shook my head. Not for this house. You have 1 hour to remove your essential personal belongings. Anything left behind, you can arrange to pick up next week. Where are we supposed to go? My mother cried. I hear Dad's couch pulls out, I replied, echoing the callous suggestion they had made to me 3 months earlier. As they frantically gathered some belongings, wedding guests dispersed, and the catering company packed up their untouched food. I stood in the driveway, watching the chaos, feeling strangely empty. This wasn't happiness or even satisfaction, just justice. They ended up staying at a hotel that night, and later moved in temporarily with my stepfather's brother until they found their own place. I heard they tried to salvage the reception by relocating to a restaurant, but most guests had already left. Later that evening, after everyone had gone, I walked through the house that was now truly mine. I found wedding gifts piled in the living room, unopened. I donated them all to a local charity the next day. My mother tried calling me repeatedly over the following weeks. I eventually agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, where she alternated between tearful apologies and angry accusations. We were just trying to secure our future, she explained, as if that justified everything. By destroying mine? I asked. She had no answer for that. My father, predictably, sided with her once again, telling mutual friends and family that I was cruel and vindictive. Some believed him, and I lost relationships with extended family members who chose to accept their version of events. My stepfather threatened legal action, claiming they had invested money in the property over the years. My attorney shut that down quickly with documentation showing that any improvements had been minimal and covered by the trust my grandfather had established for home maintenance. I ended up selling the house 6 months later. It held too many painful memories, and I wanted a fresh start. The proceeds allowed me to buy a smaller place closer to campus and invest the rest for my future. My mother and stepfather eventually rented an apartment in another town. I heard through mutual connections that their marriage was strained by financial issues and the humiliation of what happened at their wedding. They divorced 2 years later. As for me, I graduated college last year with a degree in business administration. I work at a marketing firm now and have built a life for myself with people who actually care about me. I have a small circle of loyal friends, and my best friend's family still invites me over for holidays. Sometimes I think about what might have happened if I had just signed those papers that day. How easy it would have been to give in to their pressure and manipulation. I'm grateful every day that I had the instinct to seek help and the courage to stand my ground. My grandfather once told me that character is revealed not in times of comfort, but in times of conflict. I think he would be proud of how I handled this situation, protecting not just the assets he left me, but also my dignity and self-respect. The house is gone now, but the lesson remains. Family isn't always defined by blood, and sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones you need to guard yourself against the most carefully. Edit. Thank you for all the supportive comments. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, this all happened in the U.S., specifically in a state with strong inheritance laws. 2. No, I don't regret my actions. The wedding day confrontation wasn't planned for maximum drama. It was simply when I had all the legal documentation ready and when they were planning to use my property without permission. 3. I haven't fully cut contact with my mother, but our relationship is minimal and on my terms now. 4. To those asking about my grandfather's attorney, yes, he was incredible. He actually reduced his fees significantly because he said my grandfather had been one of his favorite clients, and he was appalled by my family's behavior.